Michael Oyamo, one of the suspects in the murder case of Sharon Otieno, has been taken back to remand for 14 days pending the results of forensic and DNA tests done both on the body of the deceased and the suspects. Oyamo did not take plea even after he was transferred to the Nairobi court after botched proceedings in Homa Bay yesterday. In his ruling today, High Court Judge Luka Kimaru ruled that it would be fair to remand Oyamo given the multiplicity of investigations and the pending forensic tests. Oyamo will stay at the Muthaiga police station for 2 weeks until he is presented in court again.
If the state does not have evidence that would justify a charge being preferred against the subject, why are they holding him? They are only supposed to hold somebody who there is some evidence saying that he's involved in the offense they're investigating.
Well, following the developments that occurred in that particular case, we will be joined by Shadrach Miti in our city center studios to perhaps inform us about what this means for the prosecution and for the accused suspect, Michael Oyamo. Shadrach Miti.
Well, Jesse, what this simply means is that first, Michael Oyamo Juma will at least remain in the police custody for the next 14 days until September 26th, when he's supposed to be taken back to courts to answer 2 charges of murder. Remember, today he did not take plea, although it had earlier been indicated that that would be taking place. But then the deferment of his taking plea emanated from the application by the prosecution, who informed the court that several other investigations were still ongoing and that there were other forensic tests that were to be taken. And so on that ground, and based on the strength of the argument that was fronted by the prosecution, High Court Judge Justice Luka Kimaru had no other option but to give into the demands and the application by the prosecution. That in effect meant that Michael Juma Oyamo shall remain in police custody and for the next 14 days, and that will be at Muthaiga police station. But there were other orders that were given, including that the suspect be allowed to talk to his lawyers and his representatives, even as the case goes on. And so, remember, this matter was involving about 4 groups in the court. We had the lawyers representing Sharon Otieno's family. We had the prosecution, that is the state, and then we had the defense lawyers. And so on the part of the defense lawyers, they argued that by insisting that Michael remains in police custody for the next 14 days will be contravening his rights. But again, on their part, the prosecution argued that there is also right to life. And so so those were two things, and those were two grounds that the High Court judge had to decide upon, and so he decided in favor of the prosecution. Whereas on their part, the lawyers for the family were determined to ensure that anything that the court will be deciding upon should in any way ensure that justice and truth about Sharon's murder is coming to play. And so for them, they appear to support the argument by the prosecution, saying that the prosecution needed more time to carry out enough investigation to build a strong case that is based on evidence and other facts. Back to you, Jesse.
Well, Shadrach, as we conclude, perhaps the nature of this particular case elicits so much public interest. Perhaps inform us about why specifically the case was moved from Homa Bay law courts to the Nairobi Milimani law courts, and perhaps if the families of the family of the bereaved were actually in court, and perhaps what they had to say about this.
Well, Jesse, in the argument, all the parties involved in this case looked to agree on one fact, that the situation back in Homa Bay has until yesterday was increasingly becoming volatile and extremely hostile to the accused person. And so they felt the need to transfer the case for Michael Oyamo to Nairobi, at least to ensure his safety and at least to give a free and a smooth flow of the case. And remember, the transfer of this case again followed a short-lived freedom that was granted to Michael yesterday, when a court sitting in Homa Bay decided that since he had been in police custody for so long and he had not been presented before court, it was necessary that as per the law he be set free. But now upon his release again, the prosecution in conjunction with the police, they arrested him and planned for his transfer to Nairobi. And so why was he brought to Nairobi? Number one was to ensure for his safety, and again, there were other factors that the prosecution and the defense lawyers were arguing about, that this is a murder case, Jesse, and so the defense lawyers were wondering how did it happen that the prosecution decided to refer this matter to a magistrate's court when indeed in the first place, Michael was supposed to have been presented before a High Court judge. And so those other factors, when they came into play, then it was decided at the last minute that he had to be presented to Nairobi. And so we do not know whether the other accused persons, because the prosecution says they are still following up on other suspects and other people who may have crucial information to this. We do not know whether the rest will also be transferred to Nairobi or the rest will be taking place in Homa Bay, whereas Michael's hearing will be taking place in Nairobi. And so basically what informed the decision by the prosecution and even the judiciary to move Michael's case to Nairobi was basically his security. Back to you, Jesse.
Well, thank you, Shadrach Miti. That was the latest developments in the case involving Migori Governor's personal assistant, Michael Oyamo, who has been remanded, or he's set to be remanded for 14 days at the Muthaiga police station following the ruling passed by the High Court Judge Justice Luka Kimaru. Now, this is due to the malpractices of investigations and forensic tests that are still ongoing. And according to the ruling, it is only fair that the suspect be remanded. We'll definitely keep tabs on that particular story. Moving on